IVM.
If you are one of those show-offy people who love to tell people something that they don't know, then you should check out Simplified. It's a podcast where Chuck, Navin and Shikoh take complex subjects and try to simplify it for you in their own twisted way. New episodes are out on the IVM podcast website, app or wherever you listen to podcasts. Hello everybody, you're listening to Keeping It Queer with me, Navin Narona.
And Farhad. Hello friends. Hi, welcome to Keeping It Queer. I'm very bad at introductions, but I'm going to do it this episode. Whoever's listening, just deal with it.
Yeah.
This is Farhad.
Hi, Farhad.
Let's just talk about me.
Yeah.
I'm amazing.
Unlike other episodes, Farhad.
No, I had a question. Come on, I had a question for you guys. Okay, first I'll just... Navin.
Thanks.
Navin, my co-host on Keeping It Queer. He's
Yes.
with us. And a person I've met just once before, but I will tell you, he was a very sweet boy that one time I met him. I'll give you a little context about that later. But also an amazing boy doing great things, Anish Gawande. Yeah, he's joining us today.
Nice.
For this episode. So I'm going to jump straight into it. I have a question.
Go for it.
If you were a paid sex person, how much do you think you'd charge? Like, how much would you think you'd go for?
I'd say like 5,000 would be my going rate.
5,000 an hour, 5,000 a night.
I don't know.
What
Do you
ballpark are we
estimate
then-
by hour?
Yeah. There are boys on Grindr who do like 2,000 rupees just blowjob, 8,000 rupees if anal, vesa type.
Acha waisa.
Yeah.
Huh.
But I'm not on the receiving end, so I think whoever gets it is more luckier.
Okay.
So that's why 5,000 is fair.
Okay.
I'm like 5,000 mein sab log, you do whatever you want, I'll just like stand over there.
Okay. Is this an insensitive question to ask?
No, this is
Anish?
not. I think this is a very, sex work is labor. We should respect it just as much.
Yeah,
I think
minimum wages.
all of
Amazing.
us, and listen, the gays don't have jobs like all the other people in this country. So, economy,
Great.
20% corporate tax,
So
we'll
then,
also get some.
Tell me the price.
My going rate, this is very good. I think it depends on area. Now, if I'm traveling like rural Maharashtra politics and all, you're traveling with some big shot politician. Buggers spending 20 crores on his election, then,
okay.
1 lakh an
Jungle
hour.
some change.
Like 1 lakh. Listen,
Yeah.
I'm making money, for the rest of the month from that one
Amazing.
paid gig.
Amazing.
Then we can go next month.
Campaign for my ass.
Correct.
I have no
Correct.
idea how much I would charge. I have
A
no idea.
recording extra.
Can we tell you how much we would
Just
charge
for
if you
Do that.
Maybe.
Roast me.
Come.
Me. Come on.
Hey, Farhad Karkaria is here. The thing about Farhad is that his voice reaches you before he reaches you. And so if I had to bang him all night, I would make sure
That you had soundproof windows.
that I have soundproof windows, all of that. Because, so I'd say 10 to 15,000.
How sweet.
Oh,
What?
yeah,
What?
see, he's giving you triple
But
of
my
his rate.
problem is I feel like if I put that rate out, nobody would be like, hey, you're a chub. Nobody's going to pay this much for you. I feel like a lot of people would say that
You're
to
not a
me.
chub right now, you're an auto.
I'm an auto?
Yeah,
You're an
you're in a
auto.
transitioning phase. Yeah.
This is brand. I just say baby bear.
That's a cub.
Baby
I
bear.
know I'm 35, okay? But I
That's a
like to
cub.
go with little... Nah, yeah, you feel it? Feel, brah? Okay. So
No.
10 to 15?
Yeah.
Okay, amazing.
Given on the services.
Wow, I'm
Yeah.
going to be very quirky now for the rest of this episode.
Yes.
10
Sweet. So
to
like
15.
that's how we kind of like. No, I think that's how we should always, make people feel happy about themselves.
What an
Like
asshole.
you might not be a 9 in real life, but like at least some would pay for you to have sex with them.
TDS. And
Yeah, I think the same thing. Like
Of course.
people like look at a hoe as like a bad thing, Like she's such a slut or she's such a whore.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, if somebody's paying to have sex with this, then I'm the best thing in the world.
But not even this. I have a friend, he's like very, oh my god, check out my new phone. I just had to sleep with this guy for it. Oh my god, my laptop screen broke. I just had to sleep with someone for this. And zero
because of
judgment, obviously.
He slept on the laptop or what? It's a joke, come on. The rate is going down for her right now. Because you can't take a fucking joke. How can you take a dick?
No. Yeah, he just like whenever he needs a little cash, he just goes for it, and obviously zero judgment. But I'm very jealous of him that he has this option, and that someone would easily like, oh yeah, you need money, sure, let's do this, and here's your money. I wish I had that a little. Sometimes I need like little money for cat food or Wi-Fi, and Wow.
But but sex work is so queer. Like for generations, all the queer people thrown out of their houses, what the hell were they doing? They were going in to make ends meet. I mean, I don't know how many of you have watched Pose.
We have,
if you watched Pose, Pose is all about that, right? All of these boys going to the pier, very cute looking boys. And then all the trans women who have to take up sex work to survive. And now that you have PrEP, it's safer. So hell yeah, because people are still being thrown out. So, keeping it very queer, sex work is actually needs to be recognized. I mean, also like Bombay.
Yeah.
You can't,
it goes hand in hand
like
with
Kamachipura is like,
I feel that's why I don't
there.
do it, because I just feel like, okay, fine, 10 grand per, I'm not attracted to
that's
him.
the thing, right? Like, I just feel that the idea of sex workers that Bollywood sells us is almost like very eccentric and like extreme edge, right? They're not pretty women almost. Unlike Pretty Woman, that where she also like like a sex worker is like the way she looks in movies. For example, take Chameli, which is Kareena Kapoor's like breakthrough role. Especially if you play a sex worker or like something in the brothel, you're like a breakthrough actress now because you played a character. Sushmita Sen played in one movie, or Konkana Sen Sharma played in one movie. So for them, like they always dress with like ultra red lipstick and like too much rouge, too many like ill-fitting clothes, and they always loose at the hips. So that's a picture that even they paint based on the most like the lowest denominator in the sex work industry as well. But like the real world out there has escorts and sex workers of different assortment, and we don't see that much nowadays.
I saw good representation though recently in a Hindi movie. Have you all seen Kala Kandi with Saif Ali Khan?
No.
Okay,
it's Kandi, I think.
I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. I saw it recently because someone told me just watch it even though it's a bad movie. I saw it, first of all, I did not think it's a bad movie. The entire movie is Saif accidentally takes LSD and he ends up hanging out with a hooker / sex worker, and his whole...
And there's a crossover from Chameli where Kareena Kapoor shows up.
No, but there's this whole... A lot of the movie is him trying to figure out if she has a penis or no. Yeah, it's such a bizarre movie, and it was very well done. There was one scene where he just takes her to the bathroom and asks her if he can see her crotch. I know how it sounds when I say it like this, but when you see it in the movie, because he's stripping balls and because she's garish and red lipstick and like she's got a fur coat and everything, how he starts picturing everything, it was quite cool. Anywho,
yes,
I really want to know, Anish. Hi.
Phenomenal. Hello,
Farhad. What do you do in life? How do you make everyone's life better?
This is very funny. I do a assortment of things.
Okay,
most recently, I graduated last year. I was in New York for 4 years. I was studying comparative literature, focusing on language, politics and post-independence Senegal in the 1960s. Very, very far detached from what I jumped into right after, because I was like, I have to come back to India for this election to fight against our supreme leader. If you're listening, I love you. Jai Hind, Jai Shri Ram.
Can we go syllable wise with your course? Like what? I'm just like still...
That course ended. So now Senegal language.
Okay, cool.
It's done.
Senegalese.
Correct.
Yes.
Actually, Wolof. There's some 7 there also. But I came back, and growing up, I think the biggest thing for me was that I was in the closet for the longest time because I always wanted to get into public life, politics, some sort of bureaucracy, administration stuff. And I was like, Ghanta, that's not happening in India. Like, if I'm out, no chance in hell that I'm going to be able to run for office or join the IAS or do any of that. So that kept me in the closet for very long. I actually was even in the closet when I was in New York City for an entire year when I was surrounded by so much queerness. Because I was like, okay, no, long-term goal is to go back. What if that one photo that I put on Grindr shows up on like Times of India front page? So this was extreme paranoia. Thankfully got some great therapy. Ended up getting a crazy opportunity to go to Paris for a summer. American universities are great. And I was like, nobody knows me in Paris. I know nobody. So fuck it. Let's come out. And that's where I sort of came out. And I was like, okay, there's no going back in.
Like came out as in like
I kissed a boy and I liked it. Let's be very frank. My first kiss was in a Parisian nightclub with this beautiful boy who had cycled around a metro station for 30 minutes trying to find me because my phone was dead, which is characteristic of my life. But this all transformed my future goals, and I was like, okay, screw it, nobody's going back to politics. Now I'm out of the closet, I'm going to be out and proud. And I was very set on doing like think tank, McKinsey, making a lot of money and leading the good life in New York City. Till I sort of came back for a semester off for a lot of family stuff that was happening around as well. And I ended up working at the Culture Lab with Parmesh. And that was a really exciting place to be in, especially in 2016. You're sort of still in 377 era. And I was like, you know what? It might be possible to be out in this country because, I mean, Parmesh is the most out person I know. You cannot mistake him for being straight
I certainly
on the
know
streets. So there is queer on the streets, queer in the sheets, everywhere queer. So I was like, if he can do it, I can do it. And I decided that something has to be done. I went back to college, completed my degree, and towards the end of my degree, I was like, okay, this election is coming up. At that time, it still seemed like a possibility that we would be able to unseat this government. And I said, screw all of this. Let me jump back in. I had volunteered with Milind Devra in 2014, right before going to college, on his campaign. And I came back and I said, Milind, I want to work on your campaign. What are we going to do? And he was like, fantastic, I want you. But first, go and do these 6 months with the Maharashtra Congress across the state. So I ended up traveling 18 districts of Maharashtra, wearing very tight pants and very nice, beautiful tailored shirts and brown Oxfords and colourful socks, while everybody else around me was like pot-bellied Maharashtrian man, white on white with rubber chappals, which was atrocious. And I was sitting on stage. I mean, roar. But I was sort of excited by the prospect because I was like, fuck it. If this doesn't work. I don't care. They can't do anything to me. But I was getting this chance to like sit on the stage with like all these top Maharashtra Congress leaders in like Pathardi in rural Maharashtra, which is near Nagar, and the entire audience was confused because everybody else looks the same, and there's this rando sitting on the stage with a laptop in his hand doing whatever he has to do while these people are giving great speeches.
But what did you have to do?
So I was mainly handling all press.
Okay.
So I was doing all media communication and setting up the English media narrative.
This is for a certain person?
For the entire Maharashtra Congress.
Okay.
Yeah, so for the Maharashtra wing. So we were doing a lot of sort of work around drought and what was happening there, etc., shaping up their narrative, preparing speeches, etc. Okay. All that was happening, and I was like, there is a massive scope for queer people to enter politics because in many ways, in many places that I went to, my queerness was not like met with homophobia or resistance. It was met with curiosity. Maybe it was not met with like, oh my god, you're so cool. Like, it's not fantasy San Francisco yet, but it was like, you do what you want, we do what we want. Also being proximate to power helped. The fact that I was sitting on a stage, that I was important, nobody could really challenge that authority. And I think a lot of homophobia is just bullying concealed in other forms. And so that bullying was not possible because I was like, fuck you, I'm working with the dude.
I'll open my laptop.
I'll open my laptop and I'll like get my sugar daddy behind me to like
scold you.
Get other people to pummel you up.
This
is scold nahi, this is beat you up.
Correct. But that's what I also wonder is like, I've also seen this because when you wear queerness on your sleeve very openly rather, and the perception of like homophobia comes from untoward channels sometimes because they observe you're different. But when you wear that very openly, there's almost like a reverence to it. Okay, he's actually not, he or she is not that jarring as a person. I think that's one element which even I found because I was traveling last year and over the past like 1 year, over the 7-8 cities that I traveled to, I always go and talk to people about what they feel about being gay, and almost everyone is in the common public, at least even the rural areas, they're not against the idea of two men loving each other. It's just that do your own thing in your own space kind of thing. And then when you own it, they're like, okay, this actually is not shying away from his reality at least.
If it's a secret, then you can be shamed for that secret coming out. If you're like,
so like, we have like, for example, have you seen the Marathi movie Natrang?
Yes.
Like the famous Atul Kulkarni movie. And like, he basically has to play that the femme character in the nataks. And he almost gets like raped by a man in the trigger warning. He almost gets raped in the movie because of of his nature. But he's like, I'm not one of them. And then the other guy is like, I'm also not one of them. But we are on the road, we have to do it. So the secrecy behind that is what makes people abandon his cause altogether, Sure. And he's like, I'm not gay, but like this movie's questioning the idea of femme and male and all of that. It's pretty good.
Very cool.
Yeah,
I think that definitely sort of plays out there as well, wherein people, because homosexuality as a sort of fixed construct, LGBT is not very prominent, homophobia also can't exist in institutionalized forms. So, of course, a lot of the bullying that happens or the mocking that happens can come around being femme. I don't pass as femme, so I sort of can be mask for mask on the field. So that doesn't really affect me. But it sort of doesn't really make that big of a difference. And I think what struck me then was that in a lot of our political narrative, right, there's a huge propensity to think that your Shashi Tharoors and your Milind Devras, I love Milind, and everybody else, they're the only one sort of holding up the liberal bastion. But in reality, it's also guys like Raju Shetty, who was in the last term Hatak Nangale MP, who come up and say, I support farmers' rights, I'm a farmers' rights leader. It'll be hypocritical for me not to support queer rights. Which is crazy because this dude is like an MP of an entirely rural constituency. He is the most popular guy in a constituency of 20 lakh people. And him sort of being queer friendly is actually what's going to help a lot of queer kids there. To be like, okay, you know, like it's not just that urban elite Khan Market gang, Shashi Tharoor, who's sort of coming out and speaking up and being queer friendly. It's this dude who grew up like me, who's sort of speaking my language, who's chill with it. So through that process, created something called the Pink List, which everybody should look up. It's very cool.
I think we ourselves have talked about Pink List.
And all of us shared very widely amongst the queer people. At least there was awareness that here we are talking about queer candidates. We're talking about queer friendly candidates, and it's for sure made a difference. In fact, what you said about the farmers and the queer rights almost making sense. Remember that movie Pride? Which came out a few years ago.
The coal miners.
The coal miners and the queers coming together to raise funds.
That movie is so cute.
It's so cute, and that's the idea, right? When there's two marginalized groups, almost they find a common cause ground. To come together. That's amazing.
And I think that can happen here as well, right? Of course, now the political side of it is a little different. There were like 72 politicians who were fighting Lok Sabha elections who were queer friendly. So this is like wildly going beyond what we'd expected. Not all of them are like progressive on all other fronts. They're casteist, they're Islamophobic, they're very problematic in other areas. So I think, and for some, they're becoming queer friendly because it's great for the media, you know? Like hashtag Pride filter, June, great. So it's a sort of beginning towards getting all of these politicians to speak up about queerness. And I think what really makes a big difference is when you're a politician and you see another dude who's on the list and you're like, oh shit, he has the balls to speak up about it, or even I'll speak up about it. And it's sort of what's happened with Arya also, you know. I think the moment Ishan Khattar sort of went and demonstrated with Arya, all the homos fell in love with him. Two, others like John Abraham and all also started speaking up because it's like, okay, it's a safe issue now for me to go and speak up on.
If they cut all the trees, they're coming for John Abraham as well.
Have you seen this thing?
He's got a lot of wood.
Have you seen this thing since yesterday where
Amitabh Bachchan
and Akshay Kumar are all like, the metro is amazing. Have you seen this?
I haven't yet, but I believe it because...
No, Amitabh Bachchan is like, we're going to a hospital and my family friend used the metro instead of a car. Great.
Basically,
and I am planting family friends,
In my head, he was like, just plant a tree in your garden. And I'm like...
Kaunsa garden?
You live in Bombay, who the fuck has a garden? I don't have a potted plant.
If your family friend is dying, send your driver Abhishek to
shut the fuck up. No, poor Abhishek. Today I was telling someone like how...
Poor Abhishek. Poor Abhishek.
Very poor. Listen,
poor family
poor is literally not the one word I would use to describe Abhishek.
Dyslexic Abhishek. Let's start with it.
But
so that is what I did. Pink List and politics was all that I did last year. And longer term, for a while, I've been running something called the Dara Shikoh Fellowship in Kashmir, which is a residency for young artists to sort of come together and create crazy art in Srinagar, Jammu and Leh. We had an Egyptian curator study similarities between art spaces in Cairo and Srinagar. We had a Kuchipuri dancer do like crazy work on...
And now all of this happens in Kashmir?
In JNK. Okay. So that's the point. So we have sort of
I'm sure you have a lot to talk about that then.
So I think that's going back to the movie Pride, right? I think that's been a unique sort of position to be in right now, to navigate two marginalized groups and be sort of intimately connected to both, and figuring out how you can use your queerness to sort of influence those conversations, and how can you get queer people to care about Kashmir, because you have to sort of realize what that marginalization is as well. And I think that's been a productive space where we get half Kashmiri, half non Kashmiri folks in and create collaborative spaces. I'm going there on Wednesday, so right after this.
Okay, so are you okay with the blockade is not everywhere, right? It's
almost everywhere except for Jammu city. So we're going to be in Jammu city and then scope out how much further in we can go.
Correct.
So it really depends. Me and these 4 fellows who we get every year for the fellowship.
Okay.
So we have 4 people coming in, one PhD scholar, 1 writer, 1 painter, 1 musician. So all sorts of crazy people coming in this year. And we said, you can't bow down to this fear-mongering because that's literally what's being created, right? It's 45 days, anybody who speaks up about Kashmir is being put under house arrest, they're being detained. And this is the sort of narrative they want to create, that if you don't have anything to say about Kashmir, that's not about PM Modi saying Haga Kashmiri and create new Jannat, then shut up. Yeah. So you have to sort of keep resisting that.
Nice.
So I think that's a sort of very interesting space to be in, where you're also opening up conversations in Kashmir. I thought when I came out, my work in Kashmir would be over. I was like, I'm already anti-national on the Indian side. I don't want to become homosexual and anti-Islamic on that side and get pummeled on both sides. But the response was surprisingly positive. And I think that is because if you've been working sort of grassroots level, people have worked with you, people have known you, the sort of understanding of queerness changes dramatically. And their interpretation of it is also very different.
Okay.
So I think it's been very stunning. When I was putting up some sort of post for Pride, etc., a lot of Kashmiri people, including the guys who were working on the houseboat I used to live at, or this bungalow that I used to rent the help, they're all commenting and saying super, very cool. And I was like, wow. And this is not just for photos. I think the idea is they don't know what's happening to a rainbow
so here's
flag.
Something that happened when I was again in Bangalore last year, and I was living in a hostel with several other Indians and foreigners who have travelled. And it's always great because that space is where so much culture infuses each other into people's minds, and I was like, okay, let's talk to this Kashmiri dude, and he was pretty sweet. He was obviously traveling across India, and he was so while I was going out getting queer feedback from people's understanding of what gay means and all that, he was going around understanding what's it like to be perceived as a Kashmiri outside of the country, of the city. And I was like, okay, have you understood what gay people go through and everything? It's dude, it's not a big deal in Kashmir. The most top-notch houses, whenever they have weddings and everything, they call queer people because they know that God's given them a gift of dancing or being entertainers. Or
that's trans people only, not queer people.
Yeah, so I understand. For him, trans people, he was putting them all in the same bracket, but I had to then break it down to him also that there are gay men who are just men and women who are women.
Who don't want to sing and dance.
Yeah, that's correct. So, but at least he was not meeting me with animosity. There was understanding that trans people are not, at least in our part of the world, they're not supposed to beg or do sex work, because for us we put them on a pedestal where we give them a chance to present themselves as artists altogether. So that felt good for a change. And then I was like, okay, there's more to it. And
sound like terrible ego.
I wanna
we put them on a pedestal.
Yeah, that's a sort of confusing narrative for me, because I've been going there for a while and actually doing a lot of work with trans people there as well. There's this beautiful NGO called Sonzal Welfare Trust, which is an organization based in Kashmir that works with a lot of Kashmiri queer people, mainly trans people. And the narratives there are crazy, right? Because Kashmir doesn't have a trans person gharana system. So unlike in Bombay or Delhi or anywhere else, when trans people are sort of thrown out of their houses, they'll usually find a gharana to become part of, and there's sort of physical locations where they can go to. Kashmir has none of that. And so what happens is that Kashmiri society is great if you're a trans person and you've been thrown out onto the streets and you become a performer. Trans person's your kid? Hell no. So that you're going to be sort of trapped into a closet, forced to conform, or then thrown out of your house. And most of these trans people end up living in graveyards. And they live alone. And they live in sort of half-constructed houses off the highway where sort of construction is still happening, and they squat there till they can squat at the next place. And that sort of is the narrative that goes on almost till they die, and they often die sort of unnoticed and even unburied. Actually, Ajaz, who runs Sonzal, right, and massive trigger warnings here as well, but once had to sort of rescue the dead body of a trans woman that was being eaten by dogs because nobody had touched it on the streets. So there's this sort of similar aspect, I think this is also what all Indian uncles come and say when you say in LGBT rights. They're like, हाँ हमारे तो यहाँ हिजड़ों को हमने आदर दिया है, but they'll like look away in disgust or make remarks when somebody is sort of coming up to their car and asking for money. So I think this is that sort of narrative. And Kashmir, I think, especially for queer people, becomes tricky in that way, because you're facing this little bit of, don't worry, we always accepted you, but you're never recognized if you're gay, lesbian, bisexual.
Correct.
And I actually want to add that in many of these places, right, because there's no gharana system, all the gays and lesbians, most of them are in the closet. What's crazy is that the internet has become the only solace. So for many queer people, right, home is never a safe space.
All of us.
We're all sort of, and even if it is a safe space, it's not where we find solidarity or acceptance in that form. We're always looking for it outside. And what's happened in this ridiculous communications blockade, that's day 46 today, is that you've taken away the two things that queer people had through which they could be themselves, the mobile phone and the internet. So you're trapped at your house, there's curfew, so you really can't move around much. You don't have the internet and you don't have a mobile phone. There are some landlines that are working in some office that your uncle knows, but every landline that's working has some 40 people huddled around it, and you have 3 minutes for conversation, and all that conversation is public. So last month I was sort of acting as a telephone operator. So I had a friend in Srinagar, and he was calling me saying that, can you call this international number in Turkey or Oman or somewhere else or Australia, because landlines in Kashmir don't have ISD facility right now because they're scared they're going to call somebody in Pakistan. I was like, no. And so he was calling me, giving me a number. I was calling that number, telling them to call that number, and the process kept repeating. And it was heartbreaking, obviously, because there were a lot of mothers speaking to their daughters after a long time. There were a lot of brothers speaking to other brothers. There were people asking for medical help and money. But the one voice that you don't hear, right, is boys who love boys, or sort of trans men stuck there who've only met that one other trans man at this conference in Delhi and then gone back and kept in communication. And there's a complete stifling of queer voices because you can't be queer in a public space. And that conversation is being heard by everybody. Ha, beti kaise ho is being heard by like 40 people. It's public broadcast.
Then the fundamental right of like being yourself is trifled over there.
Yeah.
Then being your ultimate self is just never going to be in
exactly.
The
I'm a little stumped. Like, we've not even reached our break yet, and I'm just like, I feel so small already. Like, I'm such a small fucking person. I'm so okay in my little bubble, existing, not knowing anything. I do not know all these things happen. I know they happen, but just living my life, just doing every day what
and that's most of this country also, right? Because there's few people on Twitter, Instagram who are still like rallying on social media. Like, guys, we can't keep mum because we have our lives and we move on from that. It's like, one of my closest friends, as I said, like in the beginning of the season, that he went through something and now his family's moved into Delhi, and this guilt always racks me every day that I can't talk to him every day because of my day-to-day activities or whatever keeps me busy, or just like the fucking anxiety of like having to talk to a person who's almost like lifeless over there. So I guess we as millennials or our generation, some of us are still like holding the groundwork together. Be like, okay, let's at least share a story about it. At least tell others about it that is happening. Imagine what it would be like. Like my friend who's a college student in Dehradun now. He was talking to me, and we connected a million years ago on Grindr, and since then we've been talking because initially, like, Grindr, you go to new locations and you find out who's there, and I would meet like interesting people from all around the country. So he right now has no money and has no like no Maggie money. Like that's how bad the situation is because his family can't send him anything while he's studying right now. And I just can't imagine living, like he has to now go out and look for odd jobs to like, in the city, and there's not much to do for a college student. So how do you help these people? How do you say that it'll be okay when your own...
No, what I would say, I'm wondering if I do not go outside of my bubble, because this is terrifying. Whatever you've said in the past 15 minutes, I'm just a little stunned. I don't know what to say. So is it better
to like not know anything?
Or should I just be okay? I don't know what to say. When you said especially no one came to claim her body and dogs, God, I don't know.
So I think what is interesting to me, right, is that For a lot of us, we know sort of where our politics lie, where our ideologies lie. For a vast majority of people, they're very comfortable leading the lives they do and justifying a lot of action that they right. I'll give you a great example. My dad is a big Modi bhakt. Like he is like, he loves Modi ji. That article sort of flipped a switch in him somewhere where it made him realize that this action had direct consequences for someone like his son. And I think since then, he's really started questioning the government a lot. Obviously, the economy has helped in that because he's like, my business is going to shit. Fuck Modi ji. But I think what's interesting is that in many ways, even I would not look at a newspaper and pay attention to every single story because it's overwhelming. So for me, the causes that I represent, I know that if it's a queer story, like if I heard about, say, a queer story coming from the sort of mining industry and how it's displacing Adivasi folks, I think that becomes a much more powerful tool to rally one community to fight for the rights of another, where you sort of see a resemblance in struggle. So while a generic story, and I think that's been the narrative around Kashmir, you know how lockdown hai, human rights abuses hai, there's a lot of fatigue happening there. I think people are tired of hearing the same thing. I think we've heard the same thing for a long time. Nobody's telling newer stories. I think these are stories that really, it's a bad way to put it because you're also dealing with issues of grave importance, but it's marketing, like targeted, segmented marketing. Like you can't have the same sort of Agio ad playing on and the same clothes being shown to you. Or like Vodafone also had to change from a pug to Zuzu. So, you know, like you can't have for 30 years the same narrative going on. And I think the minute you find ways to create narratives that some people are more willing to listen to, that really changes the game, because otherwise people are not willing to listen. Like if I was speaking on Kashmir generically, nobody gives a damn. And for me, it's like, I know most of my followers are queer people. I know most people who listen to me are queer people. Whose minds am I going to change? I'm going to change the queer people's minds. So I think there it becomes interesting, right? Like, and how do you then as a queer person perhaps use this platform? Now we're talking about Kashmir, right? Like sometimes talking about caste, sometimes talking about other issues that come from a queer perspective. I think that really flips a switch in many people. And hopefully it'll flip a switch enough to make them vote or decide or opine in other ways. Maybe it'll cure somebody's rabid Islamophobia. I don't know. Maybe it'll cure somebody's like vile casteism.
That remains to be
the
seen.
little big things.
Little big things. But you know, little push that, especially for queer people. Like, I mean, the number of queer people who voted for this government and the number of queer people online who will support kill Muslims is scary.
Incredibly,
Because then I think that's the challenge, right? Like, how do you deal with somebody who you're like, fuck, like you're also marginalized? There's that poem now, they came for me, then they came for you. Nobody left and they came for me to speak up for me. I'm like, bruh, like nobody cares for you. Like LGBT is always in the dump.
Hey, at least they came, right?
Yeah.
Alright, on that note, let's take a small break and we'll come back and talk more serious shit. I know I'm trying to make light of whatever's been discussed, but this is serious stuff and we'll come back, and Farhad is still stumped. So
thanks, Anish.
Take a small break and come back.
You're always welcome, darling.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another awesome week on the IVM Podcast Network. If you are not following us on social media, please make sure you do. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Instagram was a big week for us this week. We crossed 10,000 followers. Also, you should check out the kind of stuff that we do over there. Get a look into the studio. And, see some of the quotes and stuff like that come out, and audiograms and, all that other kind of good stuff. So, let me tell you about 2 new shows that are coming up, right? So, the first one let me talk to you about is GayBCD. This show is hosted by Farhad and Sunetru. They share the ABCDs of their queer lives and dig into the memories and experiences. Tune in for a new episode every week on Tuesdays. Another show we're really excited to bring you is called Feeding 10 Billion. This show is hosted by Good Food Institute's Varun Deshpande and Ramya Ramamurthy. They talk to experts in the food industry about rethinking protein and reimagining food systems in India. New episodes out every Tuesday for this show as well. Also, Simplified's completing 150 episodes. My God, I can't believe that we're already there. They need your help to celebrate this milestone. Send us theories, concepts, or questions that you have using the hashtag Simplified150 on Twitter, or send us a DM on Instagram, and Chuck, Naren, and Shrikesh will answer your questions on episode episode 150. On Cyrus Says, Cyrus is joined by Rajiv Lakshman of Raghu Rajiv from Roadies fame. He shares childhood stories of growing up with a twin brother, his memories of Cyrus at MTV, and his new show Skulls and Roses. The Ganatantra podcast is back from a hiatus with a warm-up episode. Sadhu and Alok discuss themes that you can look forward to in Season 2. On What a Playa, Akash, Mikhail and Siddharth talk about the Bangladesh-Zimbabwe Tri-Series. Monty Panesar is the next mayor of London, the physical requirements for playing chess, and a lot more. On Tech Careers in the News, Shiladitya is joined by Kaushik Vijay-Raghavan and Aditi Kulkarni to talk about intelligent automation and its impact on the real world. On Agla Station Adulthood, Ritasha and Ayushi dive into romantic relationships and the complexities that they entail. On Keeping It Queer, Farhad and Navin talk to performance artist Swapnil Alize about accepting her identity, her love for dance, and her group Color Positive. On our Kannada podcast, Talle Harate, Narahari KS joins Ganesh and Pawan to share an overview of public relations in India and how it is involved. And with that, let's get you on with your show.
Welcome back to Keeping It Queer, you guys. We are on the show with Anish Gawande, a person who's done many things, as we have seen in the first half.
Have we covered all of it?
We can't pinpoint
No,
as
that's
like
enough.
what exactly.
We've covered enough.
I feel like there's more.
There's always things happening.
You're always writing. There's so much you're doing.
But we'll discuss that naturally over the course of the show.
We can't force it.
Okay. Farhad today got a hair parting. That's
side parting.
Side parting.
What the fuck is
It's
a hair
looking
parting?
very pretty.
I mean, wherever
It's like
you
I
part
put
is a
Moses
parting.
in my hair and he parted it.
Yeah, and the Jews walked like the Jews. Shit. Jews, as in like,
Oh, beautiful.
we call Jew.
I know, we got the point.
Sorry.
Can
Yes.
you stop?
Sorry,
You're like
yes.
stuttering almost. You're stuck.
Beautiful.
I'm amazed by my own almost made up pun. But yeah, what's the secret about your hair today?
Nothing. I shampooed it and I blew dried my hair.
The
and-
paycheck
Blue
came
dried.
through.
I think somebody had a nice night last night.
Blue dry.
No, nowadays I feel like when I do
Is it blow dried or blue dried? You
I'm
can't.
confused.
I
sometimes.
blow dried my hair. I didn't blow dry my hair.
I blew. What did I say?
You
You
blew
said blue
dried.
dried,
I blow dried.
which means
My
that you blew your hair first and then you dried it first.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah. I
Okay.
feel it adds first it used to be anal sex that used to add an extra step to my, like a spring in my step. Nowadays it's just blow drying my hair, does it?
Yeah.
I just blow dry my hair and I have this bounce in
That's
the
the
morning.
spectrum we're dealing
I have
with,
this
yeah.
little bounce. So that's all that I did. I don't feel like joking, guys, today.
How to be
after the
happier,
first
lower
half of this
standards.
conversation, I cannot be okay with who
But
I
we
am
have
as
to
an
joke.
individual.
Yeah, like humor's the only thing that we have.
Yeah, because I'm hearing
Constant.
Anish say all these things, and in my head I'm like, fuck, I don't even vote. I don't even vote. I don't
Exactly.
even
So
vote.
Anish has seen like so much up close and like he can keep a sense of humor about it.
Sure.
I think it's important. Otherwise, we'll all go insane. I think it's not that we're not already, but you won't know how to continue fighting. if
Yeah, but sometimes it's like your vision goes from like
But that's the thing.
regular vision to macro vision, and that happened in the first half, and I really felt like I'm such a... Okay, I'm not like self-bashing in any way, but I just feel so self-involved and so self everything when I hear all these things are happening in the world. And the thing is, I know these things. I know that something's happening in Kashmir, and I know more than something, obviously.
Yeah.
But like, and I read what you wrote earlier, so I know how like queer lives are being affected and all. But it ended there. As in, is it... And that's a part of what you're trying to do, right? Like, what do? Like, you try to stop someone from being an Islamophobe. You stop someone from doing this. I feel like mine just ends with consuming all of this, and I'm like, that's it. I know, but that's it. Like, what's the point of such
But why don't
knowledge
you
then?
vote? I think you should tell us that.
Do you vote?
Me neither. So I'm
Okay,
keeping
great.
quiet
I'm
myself.
asking
over
you.
here.
Terrible. Both of you
Okay.
need to give me explanations. I feel like a school
Okay.
teacher.
In a way,
right now.
I knew that I thought you don't, and you had some. This time you tried, and something happened.
No,
though.
actually, I'll tell you. Okay, so every year, every 4 years, I've tried since I was 18, and the election commission is not somehow like making a card for me. So I tried thrice. Okay, by the third time I was like, okay, they didn't want me, and like my entire family, they fucked up the entire spellings. Like my sister's Vilma, they gave her the name Khima on the voting card. Khima Narona. And then like she got married, so like from Khima Naruna she became Khima DeCosta. Okay, that's the only change that it made.
Wow.
So you can see like the drawbacks of like applying for voting is that they sometimes don't give a shit themselves.
Sure.
And then like this year when I was when the elections came around, I left my home. Like my family asked me to move out and everything, so I couldn't like also want to vote in my constituency, but also like live away from my family. So that happened. So that was circumstantial. But I
tend to blame the last 10 years because I moved away, and then if I had to do it, I'd have to go back to Pune. But here's the deal: I'm so back on this game because I don't even have a voter's card. That's what it's called, voter's ID, and. I'll tell you why I do it. And I know I might be entirely wrong about it. It's just in my head. Maybe it's just from me being such a fucking cynic. But I really feel like it's one big rigged game. Okay.
Again, I really feel like it's one.
I really feel like it's one big rigged game. Because I'll give you an example, right? All my life, I've seen my friends, especially my straight friends, watch cricket. Like every time they watch cricket and they're so into it, oh my god, fucking 4 balls with 6 runs chahiye and all of that shit. And then a month later, I read about how that match was fixed, And I've never not escaped like all these EVC poll scandals and every year, right? Not every year, but whenever
EVM,
elections...
EVM.
Yeah,
what did I say?
EVC.
Shit, that's the electronic dance festival in Lonavala. I'm so sorry.
Clearly, your mind is between Bombay and Pune.
Yeah, beach mein. But
your entire life is an acid trip for
oh my god. But... it happens, right? It happens every single time. You just hear all, like, multiple stories about... I just feel like the entire game is rigged. And I'm not saying... I said this to my shrink once, and he said, like, that's also a term in psychology where you feel like everything in the universe
is conspiring against.
Not conspiring against me, but you reach a point of cynicism where you just feel like, you know what? Nothing matters because nothing is authentic anymore. And... I might be wrong about that in many levels, like love. I feel like love is not authentic anymore, but I know that's bullshit. Like, I know it exists out there, it's there. But with politics, I feel like,
But what is not rigged and what do you not know the outcome of? Like, why do you have sex now? You know that the other guy is going to come in 2 minutes. Like, why go through that same process again and again? But... on a lighter note, I think please get yourself registered. Maharashtra elections are in a month and a half. You can still register to vote, it's very easy. It's online now. If you're in a space where you have an electricity bill for 2 months, you're good. You're gold. You too. You have been here for a very long time.
Sure.
But I think what's interesting, right, is that there's a lot of hopelessness. But chalo, election result might be rigged. But the very fact that you'll be talking about the election and who you're voting for, that conversation itself can shift a lot. And I think that if sort of conversations around saving RA become a part of our election this season, I think right now they're coming and being a part of sort of select bubbles, right? You're hearing them on Instagram, you're hearing them on a WhatsApp group here and there, maybe. But the minute they'll get into election conversation, they get amplified and reach way beyond where they are right now.
But I'll tell you why now... Again, I won't use the word cynicism, but now I even feel stronger not to vote. And I'm just, please, again, school me if I'm like being stupid about this. But I've just seen since this Narendra Modi thing has happened, what this government gets away with. Like, I just feel like how can today, if you're telling me what's okay, I don't know. Is there a usual
take a Unnao rape case for example, okay, where basically they spoke up against it. The lawyer went missing. The family started dying one by one, and like this is what we see in like Bollywood movies where it's hyper realized, like in a Sunil Shetty movie.
That happens to him.
His
family gets killed in a cylinder blast.
Correct. So we are seeing real examples of like if you speak against the system, it affects you hardcore. Like people are straight up like sidelined, careers are ruined, and people are.
And like you said, I just see how my parents are. My mom, who I always felt is super... When I see her talk about Narendra Modi, I'm like, fuck, who the fuck is this person? She wouldn't ever put up with this kind of bullshit, But when Bear Grylls is like, haha, Modi ji, aapki chaddi gili ho gayi. My mom's like, he's so funny. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, there's some sort of brainwashing.
Very hot daddy.
Who?
A lot of people think he's a very hot daddy.
Narendra Modi or Bear Grylls?
Narendra Modi.
How's Bear Grylls? He's just a bear. But yeah, I think
This is the first time
if you take away all the the mass lynchings and all of that away from Modi, he's quite a cute man. He's got a personality which I
will not even engage in that conversation.
I don't personally
like the way he went to Bhutan and played those drums. Oh my god!
Did you see his photo shoot in Ladakh? He has these beautiful photos of him in the wilderness, standing and posing beautifully. And I'm like,
in traditional clothes and all that.
You're the Prime Minister. Like, why do you have so much time? Like, you are going to... What?
Yeah.
I was like, and how did you hire everybody to clear the fucking desert for miles?
It's Modi's fall collection, guys.
What would you say to someone like me who's saying all the things that are like the stuff I'm saying about voting, about elections, about...
So I'll be like, it's very hard to rig the entire system, right? I think you can get away with rigging maybe 1%, 2%. Ensuring that every single vote will go the other way is impossible. So if there's enough mass mobilization... I hate to
interrupt you, but do you think it was easy for them to do what they did in Kashmir?
Because of the majority they had, yes. If the BJP had gotten 220 seats instead of 305, it would have been impossible for them to do this.
Okay.
So sort of, the place where I come from, right, because that's the sort of field that I'm most comfortable with, is sort of figuring out how to fuck with power. Like, if you want something, you find the best way to get it. And the best way in India is usually to get it into a political sort of space, and then ensure that you generate enough public momentum that ensures that politicians are shitting bricks before they sort of take any decision that will go against them in an election. And a classic example is RA, right? So now you'll see like Aditya Thackeray coming up and speak out about RA. There's a lot of other politicians who are like, oh my god, like even those in the BJP who sort of have urban constituents where they're like, oh shit, like we'll kind of have to oppose this move. Will they still be able to do it? Most probably, because they have a majority. Will they not be able to do it if they get a significantly reduced majority because of RA in the next election? Hell no. I'm telling you, like if they...
But our CM himself came out and said that it's good for the longer run, right?
And the CM will start shitting bricks
like
if he loses seats.
Cutting the trees.
It's like we have to sacrifice RA if we want like a better system of travelling and everything. And I'm like, it'll be fun to like, wear a gas mask everywhere you go in the metro next time.
Yeah.
So
and like just do it in bloody Kanjurmarg or wherever they else want it. No? But of course the CM right now is promoting this as a development move. I guarantee you that if they lose 10 seats in Bombay because of RA, that mood shift, sentiment shift will be overnight. Like politicians are the most finical creatures on this fickle creatures on this planet. Like today I will support LGBT rights. Tomorrow if there's enough public momentum against LGBT, I will forget all the statements I've made in the past and switch. So your goal should be to keep sort of your statement public enough and popular enough to be like, shit, I'll lose votes because of it.
And also like we have like a gold mine of politicians who say the most daftest things every 2 weeks. So there's never like Peacock crying.
It's not just that,
sex,
and sometimes I'm trying to think about why I am not, again, in putting it in contrast with what you're saying in the first half, right? I really feel like I need to be more involved. I need to do more. But I just can't help but think that I'm guilty of falling. Oh, the media is shit. Yeah, the way stories are presented now, the way we are told things, the way everything is sold to us is really fucking aggressive, and it works. It brainwashes people. Then I think about a Donald Trump there, and in your Brazil you have here, and you have a Modi here, and you have your Duterte or whoever in fucking Philippines.
Macron in France.
Yeah. And I'm just
he's
like...
one of the nicer guys, He's not,
but he's too right, right? Like,
no, he's centre left.
No, so when he first came into France, like his views were pretty like appealing to the right wingers to get in power, right? Like he's
but he's still like very pro LGBT, like all social progressiveness is there. Little right wing on economics. So he's like,
okay, if I can just dissect what you pro LGBT, but I'm saying in the larger scheme of things, those are just little things that appeal to not little but smaller communities or sects, or rather than the bigger picture. So I just feel like I don't, because I just feel like as a planet we are being played. Sorry, I'm stuck on
I
that.
get it.
Like,
Also, what you said about media feeding you certain things, right? Like, there's an entire social experiment which was done. The people who people who subscribe to Trump's views, for example, in America, they got like Fox News, they got more of the right-winger perspective. Even from CNN itself, okay? Like, wherever there was a piece of literature supporting Trump's perspective, they would be like, okay, this comes on my Facebook timeline, and then like whoever's left-leaning gets Bernie Sanders, gets Hillary Clinton, gets like, okay, oil spill in the whatever, global warming, Mark Ruffalo talking about preservation. So all of that is happening very clearly because of like algorithms, which are again like we are all being played in the grand scheme of things. And if you watch Black Mirror, you know how easily it is to like swindle votes and everything because of like how public perception is also shaped. So I think what you're also doing is trying to awaken that understanding of ki don't.
But you play it also, no?
Yeah,
you play that system.
Exactly. So you have to find a loophole where you become integral to the system, and you how to change this. Like like Nayak, for example, you have to become a CM for a day.
So I'll sort of make it simpler. I'll tell you. So South Bombay election is the craziest, most wild election on this planet, right? Because this is literally mini India plus some diversity, and you have every single
South Bombay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So sort of that's the constituency, for Lok Sabha. It extends from a little above Worli to all the way till Cuff Parade.
Yeah.
Okay.
The symbol is a stiletto.
Yes.
And wait, what? Are you all...
No, it's
no.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No.
I wouldn't
it
know.
looks a little bit like it.
Okay.
But what's really funny, with a very high heel, but I'd wear it. The funny thing is that beyond all of the obvious South Bombay stereotypes, this is like where a lot of the initial immigrants into Bombay came from.
Yeah.
So you think of Grant Road, you think of sort of inner parts of Tardev, you're thinking of along the eastern belt.
Baikala also.
Yeah, Baikala also, Mumbai Devi. So it's a really crazy place where you have a lot of Tamil immigrants, you have a lot of immigrants from the northeast, you have a bunch of people who've all sort of come together. And what this election taught me more than ever is that there's never going to be that one issue that's going to shift it. So I think this sort of frustration and this sort of helplessness that comes by thinking, oh my God, this one thing is so big, like my small constituents is not going to make a difference, doesn't work, because every politician will sort of have 600 people who each influence, say, even like 1,000 people, and that's 6 lakh votes and you've won an election. So all I really need to do is ensure that the people who are voting on issues that matter to them are being told that I support this issue.
Okay.
So like even with LGBTQ rights, right? It's not that only on LGBTQ rights an election can be swung. But if your larger goal is, okay, you have to get this person out, then as a queer person, hypothetically 10% of the vote, or even on your Instagram following 1,000 people, that's massive. Because somebody else like you does it, speaks up about an issue. We're moving slowly but steadily towards this sort of issue-based politics. And I think we'll sort of start voting on, like Pink List, right? Established that some people are like, hell, I want to vote for a pro-queer candidate. Like, sometimes willing to overlook the fact that what political party they belong to. Which I'm not saying is a good thing or a bad thing. I'm saying that's the natural way our democracy is progressing. Which is where we're selecting candidates based on that. You'll similarly see somebody being like, if somebody's a climate change denier, I'm not going to take it. Another great example is sexual assault, right? After Me Too, I think a lot of people have said, we do not want to vote for candidates who have been accused of sexual assault. And I think the minute you start making issue-based politics important enough, you reach a sort of point, like you have in many ways in the US, where one issue becomes a big issue in terms of swinging the vote, but it's not necessarily the only issue.
But Anish, tell me this, okay? We say all these things, and again, like we always talk from a privileged bubble, and you have traveled in the interior. So tell me, how conscious would that effort be towards voting the right candidate in a rural part of Bihar or UP, for example, where we have...
That's the most prominent.
But there we have like proper molesters and rapists in...
But that's because the issue-based politics there is caste. Right? Why is UP politics all about caste? Because that's essentially who's the leader from which caste, what sort of policies are they going to bring in to benefit that caste, and since caste is also sometimes related to occupation and paths. It's about providing SOPs to those castes who you're getting access to power to. So there they've figured out the arithmetic perfectly. They're like, acha chalo, we need one Brahmin, one Banya, one sort of Dalit person, one Adivasi person, and we'll sort of play them and get them to speak up about the issues that matter, and we've won. That's the equation that's happening in rural India right now, where caste becomes the single largest factor based upon which a person votes. So caste consolidation, I mean Haryana being the best example. Like Jat votes all go one way, non-Jat votes all go the other way.
I saw that a little in Article 15. I feel like they tried to do that
Yeah.
a little. Yeah.
But in Bombay, we're looking at a changing scheme, right? I'm not saying caste doesn't matter. Bombay, even now, like 30% of your election is decided on caste.
Correct.
30% of the votes, regardless of what party you get on, are based on what caste mobilizations you figure out are working. But the rest of it, you're getting to a point where you really can make issues the center stage of whether or not you'll vote for a person. And that's where, even if you're coming from a privileged background, you really have the power to shift that narrative. And you'll be able to do it around the coastal road. You'll be able to do it around RA. You'll be able to do it around rising electricity prices. You'll be able to do it around,
Like AAP took the whole gas cylinder thing.
Yeah, AAP took education.
Yeah.
Like their whole argument for Delhi election was, आप जिस जगह जा रहे हो, वो voting station एक school है. आप देखो आपके आजू बाजू. If you're satisfied with what you see, then vote for us. So like the polling booth became their propaganda.
Yeah.
Because they were like, we're in a school, we built the school really well. Like if you think that this is the education you want for your children, vote for us.
Yeah.
So they made education an issue.
Correct.
How can you make other things an issue that really swing an election? Today the BJP also has to come down and talk about like toilets and education and sanitation, because that narrative has sort of...
And their spokesperson Akshay Kumar is doing a wonderful job.
I
as we
mean,
can see.
I'm waiting for him to release a movie on Article 370 now. The funny thing, he's releasing a movie on PV Sindhu. I was like...
He's Pulila Gopichan.
Yeah, but...
The movie is about PV Sindhu.
Yeah.
Who's a woman. But how can Akshay Kumar keep quiet?
Because coach is the bap, no? And guys have to
Like
be...
even we saw in that Mangal mission, whatever that movie was. Like he's given... like the fucking rocket is smaller than Akshay Kumar's face. I'm like, calm down, rocket.
Also, you can't he's privileged, he's positioned as this savior when he says, oh no, the women should go ahead.
Yeah.
And I was like, boss, this is what, 1960s feminism, that I'm opening the door for you, and that's great. Because
even that there's a no smoking combined with a sanitary pad ad now that comes on TV.
My God.
This guy smoking is like, what are you smoking? You can buy a sanitary pad for your wife instead. How about I do both? And you don't tell me what to do.
Whenever Akshay Kumar starts talking, I can't listen to anything he says, because I have this weird thing about gum to teeth ratio. Like if someone has too much gum and too little teeth, I suddenly just can't hear. I just keep looking at their mouth, and I feel Akshay Kumar
is that because you want to kiss them, or it's because you don't want to look at them? Clearly you don't want to kiss them.
When he talks, he looks like Rajiv Bhatia. That's what I'm saying.
Rajiv.
Oh dear.
That's his real name, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, bapre.
So that's the thing. Like, I think Akshay Kumar, whenever he starts talking, I'm like in my that mode, कि काटेगी क्या और सुसु कहाँ से लाया. I'm like, this is the same guy who's like now becoming the next PM candidate apparently.
Oh my God.
Oh, bapre, that will be quite a tragedy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
But so you tell me, go vote. Farhad,
go vote and go mobilize around one issue and be smart about it. If you're seeing that your mum is heavily put off by the BJP's policy in one way and you want her to vote against the BJP,
not gonna happen.
No, find one issue that she really cares about where they fucked up, and you like push that issue more. Be like, oh, you care about this, or cares about the electricity bill? Look, man, because the Adani, they've sold everything to Adani. This is what's happening. This Adani is benefiting the most from this.
Yeah, you can't use her example because she doesn't care about you.
Maybe the day...
you dog. I was like, whoops.
You dog.
So you sort of play to that audience. And I am also limited in that I understand politics best. How do we go on and make actual social change happen after this? Question that I don't think I'm capable of answering. There's a lot that you have to do outside of politics. But I know how to get people to change their minds, and the only way to do that is to get that one issue and make them believe that's the one thing.
But I'm saying, see, we can't end this conversation here and be like, okay, we spoke about this, and we can't have this podcast just be a conversation piece. But how do we start something from here? Anish, like you did Pink List, so you know, like there's one way of mobilizing, and people, like we have people who listen in thousands to our podcast. So how can we encourage our queer youngsters, including the both of us who are fucking fat, lazy ass? But like, how
lazy asses, not fat.
No, but I'll tell you how, right? I think what's been phenomenal, and I told Farhad this also, I think the reason we started messaging again quite a bit was because I started listening to this podcast and I was like, holy shit, this is stunning. Because I listened to a lot of the older ones also that you've done with Parmesh and that you've done with Sridhar. And I was like, this is really great because this country is fucking starved for queer content. We will lap up anything that we see.
Made in heaven.
Yeah, Made in Heaven आएगा. एक लड़की को देखा तो ऐसा लगा. We will literally lap it up because there's none being produced. Important work is being done on this podcast around mental health. I think around body image. Funny story. I heard your podcast with Mansher, and I was at Art Night Thursday last night, and I went up to somebody and I was like, "Hi, Mansher," and it was Dilsher, and the dude just looked at me like, I am very perky, obviously. He's like, but that's my twin brother. And he's like, you can go meet him there. And then the funny part was that they both were standing in the same place after that. And I was like, I don't have the balls to go around because I've forgotten the color of your shirt. So I can't distinguish between the two of you. So I'm just going to let that be. So next time I meet
both of them often, and I still sometimes get a little, it's a little weird.
They're very, weird. They're like identical to the T.
That's identical. It's very unnerving sometimes to hang around them. Even though I know, I've never made the mistake of, is this one that one?
Should be like one of you only has to wear a white shirt, one of you only has to wear a black shirt. You know, like.
But do you pinch one and the other feels pain?
Oof. He would hate it if you asked him this question. Because this is one of those synchronicity questions twins get all the time. That doesn't happen. Although synchronicity as a concept in the world exists, but it doesn't happen to twins.
Nice.
But mother and sons has been proven that it's a thing that does happen.
So this is a bit of Modi ji reference in you also. All we know.
It's sensation. You'll also find him.
Awesome. So if you liked what we did today on the podcast, it's not just a conversation, as we said, it's a political movement.
Wait, I'm going to butt in for a second.
Go for it.
I'm going to say that what you can do, call more people from marginalized backgrounds, discuss identity, and get their perspectives on a lot of these things. What is sort of Dalit queerness looking like, and how are those challenges different? What is a Muslim person's experience of queerness looking like in this country right now? Discuss those experiences, and I think that's fabulous because you have an audience that's so diverse that's tuning in, and humor, right? Like this is a fun podcast. I like listening to it when I'm like taking a dump. But
thanks. We are the modern Reader's Digest.
We
are the new age Reader's Digest.
You're the new Reader's Digest. So
But hey, hi. No, I quickly want to know, like, to someone who's indifferent. To someone, not just for voting, I'm saying in general, like someone, and all these things that you just said, marginalized communities and all of it. Like, is there something you would say to them? Like, why should they step out of their bubble? Apart from hey, this involves you too. Like you said, right? When your dad finally understood that it directly affects his son. Yeah.
Or people like his son, like he understood that, okay, it's affecting queer people and that's something I never considered. That really got to him. And I think one reason you should care about it is there's this general sense of queer solidarity that, we're speaking out. Lots of queer people speak about like queers are being persecuted in Chechnya. Like, oh my God, Putin is like horrible. To idhar bhi ho raha hai na, to then pay attention. Like, because nobody knows now that queers in India also exist in marginalized situations. The minute they know, chalo, now 100% of people are not going to care. Like,
this is something I wanted to say earlier. Another reason why I just tend to not give a shit about all of this is because I feel even from an armchair, I'm not going to say armchair activism, but this whole change your profile picture to this with Sudan, Ethiopia, I forgot, Sudan. And I just feel like that just waters down what is actually happening sometimes. Like, I just feel like this Amazon thing happens and it literally boils down to the lungs of the earth are burning. Like, and that's it. Once that has been coined, everybody moves the fuck on. But that's the thing,
right? 1 week after Amazon fires, we moved on from our news pieces to something else. Like, some stupid shit happened. But there, like, people who are tribals who are still affected. So I think the point that even Anish is trying to make is that don't just like look at a news piece and move on because it doesn't affect you on the surface, but dig deeper, talk to people, get an understanding of what's happening.
Erin Brockovich
it. Find what is poisoning your kids and get that shit sorted.
Yeah.
like at least try.
Have you seen the trailer of the new Mark Ruffalo movie?
Yeah, same one, Dark Waters, no?
Poison your kids.
Yeah.
I can't
and it's very close to him also because Mark Ruffalo, along with Jason Momoa, all these celebs right now are like taking it in their own control that, Aboriginal land or like indigenous land is being questioned right now. People are trying to build more pipes. It's like RA, like tribals are affected over there as well. Like, so at every point, like Shraddha Kapoor came out in support of RA's thing.
Yeah.
So we need people who have the fucking power to talk about it because then there's no other way of doing it.
Exactly.
People who are stifled will always remain stifled because no one's listening to their voices. Unless you have correct politicians who come up and say that, we are representing these people, but do they have the best interest in mind? That's what we're asking.
Sure.
So, I get it right.
Hat tip to Mona Ambekankar.
Yes.
Yeah?
Awesome.
Yeah, keeping it queer.
Okay.
So I think we should wind this episode up, and we'll obviously have more of this continuing. In fact, after you come back from Kashmir, and we want to hear what experience was over there as well.
Absolutely.
So we'll do that for sure. People who listen today, if you were with us for the entire podcast, you know what we're talking about. Talk to us. We'll put up posts on social media. Tag Farhad, tag me, tag Anish, and we'll have the conversation starting from there, and we'll take it somewhere. Until then, follow Pink List also on Instagram.
Yes.
Where else can people follow you, see what you're doing?
You can see my Instagram
Be
handle.
better
It's
people.
very bad, but follow me on Instagram, follow Pink List, follow Dara Shikoh Fellowship, which has a website and no Instagram page, and have a great evening ahead, or
Have a
morning.
great dump. Yeah.
Such a soothing
great
voice
dump.
he's got. No? He said such dark things in this episode with such nice... I liked it.
See, that's also one thing. Like, I'm appealing to all the ones who like Lata Mangeshkar. Actually, that's Screech. But I'm appealing with a soothing voice to everybody who only cares about soothing voices to not vote for Narendra Modi.
Okay, I'll make a better effort. That's what I'm gonna do. I know
sure.
I might just stop there,
Yeah.
but no, I need to be a better person, and I know sometimes I just feel living is enough in today's world is
Surviving is enough.
Yeah, surviving is enough to make a change. Being a nice person is enough to that's all you can do.
I'll
But
reapply
I need
for
to
my
do
car
more.
also.
Sorry,
Even if they
right?
need
Yes.
my
We
spelling
do it
as...
again, no?
Let's go.
Huh?
Done.
Chalo.
You have to go to Bhayandar. I have to go to Pune.
Digital India, guys.
You'll drop me on the way.
Digital India.
Okay.
It's
Oh.
online.
Okay,
I'll
like
send
it'll
you the
come
link.
home.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Everything
okay.
is packaged.
Hide your kids, hide your wives.
But have they figured out this? Do I have to go to where I was born? Or
No,
where-
you just apply for a change in address.
No, to vote.
No, you apply for a change in address and your constituency changes.
So many things to learn for that.
Amazing.
Not
Okay.
enough time.
Okay.
Alright, this has been Keeping It Queer. We'll see you next time with a whole new episode. Bye.
Bye.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the host and their guest and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of IVM Podcast.
रिश्ते में तो हम तुम्हारे पॉडकास्ट लगते हैं नाम है फुटबॉल शुटबॉल
Presenting Football Shortball, a show about three friends discussing our favorite game over a beer. Sometimes three, maybe even five. Hi, I'm Shiva, and with me are my two sidekicks, Gaurav Sapre and Karthika Iyer.
Sidekick, you mean like Batman's Robin or Van Persie Robin?
No, I mean like Alexis Sanchez, but with a little more skill than just playing the piano.
Ha, just shows how the best players at Arsenal are mere bench warmers at United.
Oh, thank you, Iyer. But you're a Fulham supporter. So whenever you say anything to support me, I question my beliefs.
Just like how Griezmann would say, एक बार मैंने जो decision ले लिया, तो मैं अपने आप की भी नहीं सुनता.
Banter aside, we will talk match reports, transfer rumors, top controversies, fantasy football picks, and so much more. So grab a beer and tune in to Football Shootball every Wednesday on the IVM Podcast app, website, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Look! Up in the internet! It's a meme! No! It's a cat video! No! It's the Geek Fruit Podcast!
That's right, we interrupt this riveting broadcast to tell you about our show, The Geek Fruit Podcast, where Tejas, Dinkar and I, Jishnu, talk about everything in pop culture, including DC, Marvel, Star Wars, Netflix, and everything in between.
You know how your friends hate it when you ramble about some nerdy crap and you just want somebody to listen to you? Well, sorry, there's nothing we can do about that, but come listen to us ramble and it'll almost be like the real thing. Kind of.
Listen to new episodes of the Geek Fruit Podcast every Monday and the Geek Fruit Bulletin every Thursday on iTunes, Google Podcasts, the IVM app, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Happy listening, you nerds.